In the late years of the Roman Empire, the name of Emperor Lucius Marcellus Aurelius stood as a symbol of absolute authority. He was not born into power, but rose through the ranks of the legions stationed in Germania, where his tactical mind and discipline earned him favor with both soldiers and senators. His early years were marked by calculated loyalty and strategic alliances that brought him to the imperial throne. Guys, can you help me to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel? And it's my dream, sorry for interruption, it's humble request. Let's jump into the video. Lucius's rise coincided with a period of instability. Rival factions within the Senate sought to control the empire's treasury, while distant provinces were growing restless. He addressed these threats not with open warfare, but with methodical reorganization. His reforms of military command, provincial taxation, and grain distribution were aimed at restoring order, and for a time, Rome flourished under his direction. Unlike many of his predecessors, Lucius emphasized visible order and grandeur. He commissioned marble statues, expanded the Senate's public halls, and strengthened the network of Roman roads connecting the capital to its provinces. These projects created employment and reinforced the empire's image of unity. His governance was guided by a belief that visible structure represented divine favor, and marble became a recurring symbol of his reign. Lucius was deeply influenced by Stoic philosophers, particularly the writings of Seneca. He adopted restraint as a personal virtue, but this restraint applied more to his demeanor than his rule. He maintained strict expectations for obedience. His approach to governance combined administrative efficiency with an unyielding sense of control. He believed that disobedience in one province could set an example for others, threatening the empire's balance. The emperor surrounded himself with scholars, engineers, and jurists, forming a court that valued precision and order above emotion. He frequently held assemblies in which he discussed law, trade, and city planning. Yet his circle was also a place of quiet fear. Those who questioned imperial decrees, even in private, found themselves exiled or removed from office. Lucius maintained that punishment was an extension of discipline rather than cruelty. Public ceremonies became a cornerstone of his image. He organized grand parades celebrating victories and construction achievements, ensuring that the citizens of Rome associated his face with stability and abundance. His image was stamped on coins alongside inscriptions linking him to Jupiter, the god of justice and kingship. The merging of divine symbolism and imperial power reinforced the belief that defying him was equivalent to defying the gods. Lucius's economic reforms expanded Rome's trade with North Africa and the eastern provinces. Marble, olive oil, and grain flowed into the empire's heart, while his governors were instructed to maintain detailed records of exports and taxes. Corruption was punished harshly. A special council known as the Curia of Purity was established to investigate dishonest officials. Many praised this institution for its effectiveness, though others viewed it as a tool for consolidating control under Lucius's authority. The emperor's fascination with marble extended beyond architecture. He saw it as a representation of endurance. Temples, palaces, and even military monuments were constructed using the finest Carrara marble, each engraved with inscriptions declaring the permanence of Roman order. The stone's durability reflected his political vision, that his empire, like marble, should outlast generations. Within the palace, Lucius maintained a strict schedule. Reports from governors and generals were reviewed daily. He dined modestly, avoided excessive celebrations, and demanded punctuality from his ministers. He viewed the empire as a living organism that required discipline in every limb. This attitude made him efficient but also unbending. Decisions were final, and dissent was regarded as decay within the body of Rome. Under his rule, Rome's population swelled with veterans and artisans, drawn by new opportunities. The construction of aqueducts and public baths symbolized civic improvement, but the emperor's priorities were also clear: loyalty first, prosperity second. Statues of the emperor were placed in every major forum, ensuring his presence was both literal and symbolic in the daily life of Roman citizens. The Senate's relationship with Lucius was one of cautious cooperation. He rewarded loyalty with wealth and estates, yet senators who hesitated to endorse his decrees found themselves stripped of privileges. He believed that Rome's greatness depended on obedience rather than debate. This principle, though successful in stabilizing the administration, created an undercurrent of resentment among the old aristocratic families. Foreign relations during his reign were marked by negotiation and deterrence. Lucius preferred treaties over campaigns, but ensured that legions were permanently stationed along key borders. He restructured military pay and logistics, reducing waste and increasing readiness. His reforms prevented several rebellions in the eastern provinces, solidifying his reputation as a leader of efficiency and order. The emperor also invested in education. He funded academies that taught law, philosophy, and engineering, believing that an educated elite would maintain the empire's administrative integrity. The curriculum emphasized duty, hierarchy, and Roman superiority. For Lucius, knowledge served governance, not personal enlightenment. Scholars who questioned imperial authority were quietly dismissed or reassigned to distant provinces. Religious ceremonies grew more elaborate under his direction. He introduced a festival known as Dies Marborum, the Day of Marble, celebrating purity, structure, and the endurance of the empire. Citizens offered small marble carvings to the gods, symbolizing their loyalty to both Rome and the emperor. This blending of faith and governance reflected Lucius's understanding of control to rule both body and spirit. Despite his structured administration, Lucius faced resistance from within the army and the provinces. Some governors accused him of micromanagement, while a few generals felt constrained by his constant oversight. Still, his strict hierarchy ensured that no rebellion reached maturity. The emperor's spies, known as the Oculi Imperatoris, or Eyes of the Emperor, operated throughout the empire, reporting potential conspiracies directly to the palace. Lucius's reputation as a just yet severe ruler grew over time. Citizens admired his reforms, but his intolerance for deviation led to growing fear among officials. Trials for treason became more frequent, often centered on accusations of corruption or disloyalty. The emperor regarded these proceedings as necessary maintenance of the empire's moral foundation. In the Forum of Peace, a monumental marble hall was erected under his supervision. Its walls were engraved with the laws of his administration, and statues of loyal governors stood along its corridors. The emperor's likeness appeared at the center, hand extended outward, a gesture meant to symbolize both offering and command. The structure became the physical embodiment of his ideology. Beauty, order, and discipline fused into permanence. By the 20th year of his reign, Rome enjoyed stability unseen since the days of Augustus. The roads were secure, the treasury was balanced, and the legions were loyal. To the public, Lucius Marcellus Aurelius represented the model of a philosopher king. Yet within the Senate and military circles, quiet discontent began to stir. His pursuit of absolute order had silenced discussion and fostered an atmosphere of caution that bordered on fear. Still, the emperor remained steadfast in his conviction that Rome's strength lay in control. He viewed rebellion not as a political act, but as a flaw to be corrected through discipline. In his mind, punishment was a tool of purification, preserving the empire's perfection. The seeds of his future methods and his infamous legacy had already taken root in the same marble foundations that upheld his reign. By the time Emperor Lucius Marcellus Aurelius entered his third decade of rule, his empire had achieved unprecedented administrative precision. The treasury was abundant, trade routes were secured, and the legions functioned like clockwork. Yet beneath the surface of this prosperity, Lucius had grown increasingly preoccupied with the idea of purity, not only in governance, but in moral and civic conduct. He came to believe that corruption was a form of spiritual disease that could infect the very structure of Rome. It was during this phase that his council began recording a new category of crime, perfidia civium, or betrayal of the civic spirit. These offenses included bribery, falsification of records, and disobedience to imperial decrees. While earlier emperors had relied on exile or execution, Lucius wanted punishments that symbolized Rome's ideals. To him, death alone was too brief to carry moral weight. The emperor's fascination with marble, long a sign of beauty and endurance, soon evolved into an instrument of retribution. According to records from the Archivum Palatinum, Lucius convened his engineers and philosophers to design a punishment that would represent both purification and permanence. The result was a procedure that would later be known as Manus Marmorea, the marble hands. The process began in the imperial workshops beneath the Forum of Peace. Skilled craftsmen were ordered to create large bronze basins designed to contain molten marble dust mixed with binding agents and oil. When heated, the mixture formed a thick, glowing liquid capable of hardening rapidly upon cooling. It was neither as hot as molten metal nor as mild as wax, but it caused unbearable pain when applied to flesh. Lucius decreed that this punishment would be reserved for those convicted of high treason, embezzlement of state funds, or acts of betrayal against the empire. The condemned were brought before the Senate, where guilt was confirmed through written confession or testimony. Once judgment was passed, the emperor himself would dictate the execution order, stating that the hand that betrays Rome shall become its monument. The ritual took place in a hall adjoining the Forum of Peace. Witnesses included senators, magistrates, and representatives from the provinces. The condemned stood restrained, hands bound and extended over a stone pedestal. The marble mixture, shimmering white and grey, was poured slowly over their hands. The substance adhered to skin and muscle, hardening within moments. The process caused severe burns, yet the emperor's physicians ensured that death did not come quickly. The marble encasement was designed not to kill immediately, but to immobilize. When the substance cooled, the victim's hands resembled pale sculptures, rigid, lifeless, and strangely beautiful. The condemned were displayed briefly for the assembly before being taken to the Domus Panarum, the house of punishment, where death followed through exposure and exhaustion. The emperor's decree ordered that the hands be severed post-mortem and preserved in the Hall of Justice as symbols of warning. This act, though brutal, was not seen as cruelty by the imperial court. Lucius described it as transformation, a purification through endurance. The marble, once used for temples and monuments, was now employed to immortalize human failure. The emperor maintained that the punished became part of Rome's eternal structure, their corrupted hands repurposed into instruments of civic education. Records indicate that the first known use of Manus Marmorea was against a provincial treasurer, accused of diverting funds meant for aqueduct repairs. His hands were cast in marble and placed at the entrance of the very aqueduct he defrauded. Citizens were instructed to view them as a lesson in fidelity. Over time, these displays multiplied throughout the empire, often placed near government buildings, military garrisons, and courts of law. The Senate, initially hesitant, gradually accepted the practice as an emblem of the emperor's unshakable justice. The punishment spectacle created fear, but also admiration. Roman citizens began referring to the emperor as custos manuum, the keeper of hands. Inscriptions were carved below each preserved relic, detailing the name of the offender, the crime committed, and the year of the sentence. For Lucius, the procedure was not merely a method of punishment, but a philosophical statement. He viewed marble as the purest material and cold, incorruptible, and enduring. The condemned, in his reasoning, were not erased but redefined. Their wrongdoing crystallized into something permanent. This ideology transformed justice into a physical, visible part of Roman architecture. Engineers under imperial command refined the process further. They experimented with temperatures and mixtures to create varying textures and shades of marble, sometimes embedding veins of red pigment to symbolize impurity. The emperor personally approved the final composition, insisting that it reflect both beauty and restraint. His obsession with aesthetic order extended even into the realm of suffering. Foreign envoys who visited Rome during this period noted the striking juxtaposition between grandeur and severity. While the emperor's reforms brought efficiency and prosperity, the displays of marble hands served as constant reminders of absolute authority. Some chroniclers describe the sight of these relics as discipline carved in stone. To the common citizen, they were both warning and reassurance, proof that Rome's justice reached all levels of society. Despite its precision, the practice soon drew criticism from certain philosophers. Members of the Stoic and Epicurean schools questioned whether symbolic punishment could replace moral reform. They argued that fear bred obedience but not virtue. Lucius dismissed such views as weakness, claiming that the empire's survival depended on visible order, not theoretical virtue. So over time, the emperor's reliance on this method deepened. Cases that once merited exile began to result in marble sentencing. The Curia of Purity, originally established to root out corruption, evolved into a judicial body responsible for selecting candidates for the ritual. Its members reported directly to the emperor, bypassing traditional legal channels. This centralization of power eliminated ambiguity in judgment, but eroded the Senate's influence. In provincial territories, governors began adopting their own versions of Manus Marmorea to maintain loyalty. While some used plaster or stone as substitutes, others replicated the full process with imperial supervision. The punishment spread as a form of imperial branding, each act reinforcing the emperor's doctrine that Rome's strength lay in visible consequence. As years passed, the Hall of Justice grew crowded with rows of marble-encased hands. Each relic bore a bronze plaque inscribed with the imperial seal. Visitors described the hall as silent and sterile, illuminated by shafts of sunlight that reflected on the pale surfaces. The emperor often toured this chamber in solitude, regarding it as the most honest record of his reign. While the empire remained prosperous, subtle changes began to emerge within its administration. Officials grew cautious in speech, fearing misinterpretation. Senators avoided open debate. Generals executed orders without question. The empire functioned with mechanical efficiency, but the vitality that once characterized Roman governance began to fade. Fear had replaced ambition as the binding force of loyalty. Through his creation of the marble hands, Lucius Marcellus Aurelius had achieved what he long desired, a perfect system of obedience and visible purity. Yet in doing so, he had set in motion a silence that would soon consume even the foundations he sought to preserve. In the final years of Emperor Lucius Marcellus Aurelius's reign, Rome stood immaculate in structure, yet hollow in spirit. The streets gleamed with white stone, the aqueducts ran flawlessly, and the citizens obeyed every decree without hesitation. Yet behind this order, the Senate whispered of exhaustion. The empire no longer breathed, it merely followed. The emperor's obsession with purity had grown consuming. Reports of disobedience, no matter how trivial, reached him daily through the oculi imperatoris. Clerks who misplaced documents, governors who delayed taxes, and soldiers who spoke carelessly of the throne found themselves accused of betrayal. Each accusation led to another ritual of the marble hands, turning justice into routine. Among those condemned was Gaius Varro, a general once loyal to Lucius during the Germanic campaigns. His only fault had been requesting clemency for a group of soldiers accused of theft. The emperor saw the plea as sympathy for corruption. Varro's punishment was carried out in the Forum, witnessed by thousands. His marble-encased hands were displayed beside the statue of Jupiter, a final reminder that mercy itself had become treason. The execution marked a turning point. Fear turned to quiet resentment within the ranks of the legions. Commanders began to conceal reports, fearing misinterpretation. Trade envoys delayed their returns to Rome, and provinces once eager to honor the emperor sent only brief formal messages. The empire appeared calm, but beneath its marble surface, loyalty had cooled into silence. Within the palace, Lucius spent hours wandering the Hall of Justice, where the preserved hands of traitors stood in endless rows. The air was heavy with the smell of stone and oil. He often paused before each relic, reading the inscriptions aloud as if confirming his righteousness. Yet witnesses noted a change in his demeanor. His speeches became shorter, his orders more severe. He began to dine alone, speaking less to his council and more to the statues that lined his corridors. Illness struck the emperor during his 33rd year of rule. Physicians attributed it to exhaustion, but attendants reported that he spoke of voices, whispers echoing through the marble halls at night. He claimed that the hands of the condemned were calling for judgment. The Senate, though aware of his decline, dared not intervene. On the morning of the Dies Marborum festival, the emperor was found lifeless in the Hall of Justice. He sat upon the stone dais, his own right hand encased in the same marble he had once ordered for others. No record explained how it had happened. Some believed it was suicide, others that his attendants fulfilled an unspoken command. The inscription below his throne read simply, "Order endures." After his death, the practice of Manus Marmorea was abolished. The marble relics were sealed within the forum, their inscriptions erased by decree. Yet the people of Rome never forgot the emperor who turned justice into stone. His empire, though still standing, remained marked by his final creation, a city frozen in perfect silence.